Welcome to the channel again. Anyone that's interested in 1/400 scale miniatures, they're 3D printed from shapeways.com. This is called a Sakai R2H Steamroller. I think it is a Japanese company. But yeah, I saw this driving around one day and I thought I'd just make a model of it. Interesting, you know, a 3-wheeled steamroller is just different. Usually there's just one in the front, one in the back, right? Those steel wheels. But this one has 3. Okay. This one articulates as well. Alright, this next one is a Mercedes. It's called an Arox, and it's essentially a cement mixing truck. Not much else to it, really. Okay, so I painted it cement gray. Yeah, I am not that deep. Now we got a big one coming up here. Actually, let me arrange. I'm trying to arrange the models in a logical order afterwards so we can see them all at the end. This thing is called a Cress coal hauler. So it's a big vehicle, of course. This blue little Range Rover, you could probably dump 20 of those Range Rovers into this thing. You know, sadly, the world's electricity still, there are a lot of coal-powered plants, you know, burning all this coal and to make the power that we need. So this thing has to move a lot of it. These front wheels actually do steer, but I have them sticky tacked or poster mount puttied in place. I apologize for the vibration. Someone's upstairs cleaning or doing the food disposal. There's the bottom, by the way. Okay. Alright, a little less big is a Volvo articulated dump truck. This is a, let's see, what model is it? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. An A60H dump truck. So this one, you know, obviously articulates, but I also even modeled it so the bed will dump. But you'd have to put some putty in there for it to do so. I just think it's a cool looking vehicle. Alright, now the big daddy for today is another dump truck. And this is, I believe, a Chinese make. Sorry, I gotta back this camera out or raise the angle. Those are 3 40-foot long shipping containers in the back of this thing. This is called a WTW220E by Sanjiang. Sanjiang definitely sounds Chinese to me. China's a big country. They must have a lot of mines, right? They gotta dig up all those minerals and stuff for us to buy iPhones and computers and all that other stuff. So this is one of those vehicles. You know, what's interesting is the bottom of this. You know, there's actually double wheel bogies here, and they, I believe, rotate. So I think they actually all can pivot. So this thing could drive sideways if it wanted to. So that's they get that idea, I think, from Goldhofer lifts, which I'll actually show you at the end of this video. So this one I also made it so the bed dumps. Right, you can see there's giant cooling fans there on the top of that back thing. So being a 220E, I have to assume this is an electric dump truck. Right, so that's better for emissions. So that's good. Okay, let's get this guy out of here. This next one, I believe, is a German one. I think it's pronounced Schaff. I don't know how to pronounce anything. It's an SFL 100, and this is a mining front-end loader. So that's why it's so low to the ground, because it literally has to go into mines and then shovel stuff around after the diggers, you know, break things out of the stone or the earth. So it's meant to go inside of mines. So, interesting one. Looks a little rough. There's a lot of wax support material that I failed to clean off. So, just laziness. It is articulating, you know, not only in the body, but also the shovel will move up and stuff and pivot. Yeah. I know, it's a gimmick, moving parts. But if you don't see any body seams, I don't mind. This next one is a Volvo front-end loader, an L350F. So this looks like a more traditional one you'd see above ground. You know, maybe shoveling snow or in a mine, a lot of stuff around. perhaps even at a garbage dump. So it articulates as well, not only in the body, but also the shovel, as you saw, right? Sorry. Okay, let's get that out here. Okay, this next one is actually a rock crusher. It's called an FT4250, and it's made by KPI, JCI, or Aztec. No, I don't know. Mostly it's known as a KPI. But I've seen these in real life in Arizona. What they do is they load in rocks or concrete, and then the thing feeds them into this thing. There's a big rotary drum spinning around, and it crushes the stuff, and then it feeds it out these belts here, and these belts can sift it or sort it out a little bit. It's actually so front heavy, I need to have it sticky tacked, but it's got tracks like that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. If you're actually interested in this at a larger scale, on my Shapeways page for this model, I should probably have information of who's printing these out in 1/64 scale and larger. Although it hasn't happened yet. He just purchased the file from me, and he's going to print them himself, and he's going to have painted models. All the models I'm showing come raw from Shapeways. You have to clean them with Simple Green and an ultrasonic cleaner for several hours, and I usually go over them with a toothbrush, and I still have wax support that stays on. That's what all these ridges are on the paint here. Those are wax lines. So I should have gone over them with like a toothpick and actually scraped them off, but I was lazy. I have hundreds of models to paint. So alright, we're getting off track there. This is called a Tesmex 1675 chainsaw trencher. So it is literally a giant chainsaw, and this thing pivots into the earth, and that's what it digs out a channel in the ground as it's driving in that direction. So it literally chainsaws the earth, and the reason why they do that is they want to lay pipes and stuff like that into the earth, drainage pipes or irrigation pipes or whatever. I'm not even sure, but these belts on the side feed off all the stuff that it digs out of the ground. This thing must be insane to watch in real life. I'm sure there's YouTube videos on it. Okay, it's another big vehicle. Some smaller trenchers. This one articulates, obviously, as you see. This is called a Wolf 7000, and this is a bucket trencher. So there's a wheel here in the back, and it's got a bunch of buckets with teeth on it, and that thing spins and it digs the earth as it drives away from us. So although this looks like the front, it's really the rear, because it's pulling this thing that way, right, as it digs out a trench. And again, it's to lay pipe and stuff like that into the earth. And this one, let's see. Yeah, never mind. Let's get that out of the way. This next one is another type of trencher. Oh, darn, articulation gets in the way sometimes. But it's like a blade trencher. So this is called a Wolf 540 multi-link plow. So it plows through the earth. But again, although this looks like the front, it's really the back, because this thing pivots into the ground, and then it pulls the plow through the ground to dig a trench out. Alright. Now this one, you can contact a user on Shapeways called Foster Racing, and I have some pictures. He bought this model, and he prints them in 1/64 scale, and then he paints them, and he ships them to people. I don't know what he sells them for, but I can tell you that painting models is a real pain. That's why I don't like to do it, and that's why most of my models don't look very nice. I don't have the patience for it. It's also really hard to do at 1/400 scale. I guess you can try it yourself, and you'll find out. So another one that you can find from Foster Racing if you want a larger scale. This is called a Hydromax 2600 from Port Industries. So this is a wheel trencher again, but it also has what's called a shoe, or I think it's called a boot. And so on this one, you'll see it digs out the earth with the wheel as it's going away from us. But they feed a pipe in through this section here, and that pipe gets laid down after the trench is dug out. So it seems to be a much more efficient way to lay pipe. They do it while they're digging the trench ahead of it. Interesting stuff. Okay, that's enough for the trenching today. Farm tractor. This is, I think, the world's largest farm tractor. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's called a Big Bud 747. And you can look it up. There's images of it. I didn't paint this nearly as well as the images, of course. But it's a crazy dual-tired, farm tractor. So with stacked exhaust coming out this front there. Pretty crazy looking. Alright, a little less extreme. We have what's called a Class Lexion 500 or 600 series farm tractor. And so this is a harvester, a combine harvester. This red thing spins and it harvests wheat or whatever, and then it feeds it into the machine, and this nozzle here usually lifts up and it feeds into like a dump truck that's driving next to it. Alright. The last farm tractor, this thing is called the Versatile 1080 Big Roy, and it's an articulating farm tractor, which I find interesting, although I can't articulate much. I have to make some sacrifices designing things so small. But yeah, it's got 8 wheels, so that's kind of cool. It's just a really funky looking farm tractor. I forget when it was from, like maybe the 70s, or please leave a comment if you know when this thing was built. But you can find pictures of it online still. I think it travels on farm shows and stuff. Alright, we're going into some forestry now, like harvesting trees and stuff. If you guys like paper and packaging, well, these things need to go out and cut the trees down to do it. So this is called a Caterpillar 584 forwarder. So what they mean is after the trees are cut, they're put into the back of this thing and it forwards the trees off to the next stop that it has to go on. Right. So it's basically a 8-wheeled off-road articulated truck with a crane on the back so it can lift up the cut logs. There's the articulation. Yeah. Okay. This next one here is an HSM 904Z skidder 6-wheel drive. So I'm just guessing by the name skidder, it picks up a log with this hook in the back, and then it literally just drags it against the ground to get to its next point. So it's literally skidding the log, right? But if you're just lifting up one end of the log, only the back end is skidding, so that's why it's able to do so. So naturally it's articulating, and yeah, just a different type of vehicle I never knew about before. Okay, this one here. This is a John Deere 843L Feller Buncher. So this actually cuts trees down. So this thing drives up to a tree, and like that, and then it cuts it. On the bottom there's a saw blade, you can see kind of there. And then it grabs it with the hook, the arms up top, and then it must rotate it down to the ground. So, yeah, interesting looking vehicles that I just got on a kick of forestry one day. Try to cover all different types of vehicles. I like different things. This is an interesting looking one. It's called a Matriarch Skogger. And so, again, it probably drags trees around with his arm in front of it. But it's so small. I mean, look at the blue Range Rover next to it. It's not a really big vehicle, so it must be used for small trees and stuff, just to move them around. But quite an interesting looking design, how that arm is behind but over the cabin. Alright, only 2 more to go. This one's kind of in pieces. This is called a Tiger Cat 1185 tree harvester. So this thing, it looks a little floppy because the thing's all articulated. So this thing actually articulates, like the arm. You can see the cabin. So that articulates, and then the body articulates. I should probably just super glue everything together. Maybe I'll do that later, but at the bigger scales, I want people to be able to play with their toys. It seems to be something people like to do. Me, I'm more about static models, but people ask for stuff like this, so sorry, I'm just trying to put it back together. Pause. Alright, got back in one piece here. So yeah, pretty funky looking vehicle. It looks almost like an insect, you know, so spindly. Alright. The very last one is pretty boring. This is a Goldhofer set of powered transportation modules. They call them PSTs. I don't know what the S means, or really what the acronym means. Each of these modules has these bogies, again, like that dump truck. And each of these sets of 4 tires can spin 360 degrees. And then they're all synchronized together. And then what I'm holding in my fingers is the power unit. So there's a bunch of batteries and a control unit. And it tells these wheels to all move, you know, wherever they're supposed to move. So these sort of modules are used to move like rockets and giant heavy objects, houses and stuff like that. So let's see, maybe we can get this little thing up here. But you know, because the wheels can articulate in any direction, this thing could just move sideways. It could strafe if it wanted to. So it's interesting. Boring to look at, but interesting. These are actually in the highest position of the wheels as well. The whole thing can go up and down, but because the model is so small at 1/400, they put them in the highest position. Okay, let me rearrange these and we'll look at all of them. And there we have a little wave of construction and mining, forestry, things that we don't really think about when we use the stuff that we use every day. All that material has to come from somewhere, and these are some of the vehicles that make it happen. So, did you guys have a favorite today? Tough call. Tough call. I like the idea of this chainsaw one myself. Just a giant chainsaw digging through the ground. But then this is such a funky looking vehicle too. I never knew that about that. And I never even thought about a mobile rock crusher. So those are some of my favorites. Okay, leave a comment if you have one. I'll see you guys in the next one 1/400 video. Cheers.